also known as our family reunion. We are thankful that you all have taken time out of your busy lives and your schedules on this Saturday morning to be with us. And we are so thankful to be here this morning with genealogist Nicka Sewell-Smith, who we will hear from later in today's program. Before then, I just wanted to start with a few remarks about the Descendants of Enslaved Communities at UVA, and then we'll introduce members of the board who are on screen here with me today. And then we'll have our keynote speaker introduction and an overview of our accomplishments from Colleen. The Descendants of Enslaved Community has been in existence for a couple of years now, and we are growing. We are so grateful for the opportunity to have the chance to work with the University of Virginia to build this Descendants movement. We are also grateful to have alliances and relationships with many other descendant groups around the country. And so what we are doing is part of an extensive movement. The Descendants of Enslaved Communities at the University of Virginia is a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And our mission is to reclaim and honor the narratives and the legacies of the lives of our enslaved ancestors from the University of Virginia and all affiliated properties where that UVA presently owns. And so without further ado, we will introduce other members of the board this morning, and we will start with our board vice chair, Bertha French.
Good morning, everybody. My name's Bertha French. I'm very pleased to be here, excited for the program, very grateful that everyone took time out this morning. I'm the vice chair of the board and one of the founding board members with everybody here in this call. And I'll pass it to Halise.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Halise Jones, also a member of the board. It's wonderful that everyone could gather here today to join in this special occasion. Welcome.
Good morning, everyone. I am Star Reams. I am also a founding member of the DEC and board secretary. Thank you to co-sign everyone's sentiments. We're excited to have you here today, and I'll turn it over to Datisa.
Good morning, everyone. I am Datisa Brown Gathers. I'm happy to see you. I am the previous co-chair and now working in the capacity of more of our finance as treasurer. So I want to just welcome you, and I can't wait to hear our guests. I'm so excited to have you and looking forward to what you have to share with us today, and looking forward to and happy Descendants Day, everyone.
Good morning. My name is Colleen Yates, and I'm a board member of the DEC. And welcome, everyone. Glad you're here. Hope you learned something. Just glad you're here, and a happy Saturday morning, happy Descendants Day. And I'll turn it over to Nina Polly.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Nina Polly, board member of DEC. Like everyone else, just hope you enjoy the day. Have a good morning. Thanks.
Good morning, everyone. Happy Descendants Day. I'm Carolyn Mitchell-Dillard. Happy to be with you all this morning. I am a board member of the Descendants of Enslaved Communities at UVA, also in the Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. And just happy and excited to hear Nicka's presentation this morning. Thank you for joining us.
And I am Naya Bates, realizing I forgot to introduce myself. I am a member of the DEC board and also our resident historian. And I am so glad to have the opportunity to MC for you all today. So next, we will have Colleen give an overview and a recap of our accomplishments as the Descendants of Enslaved Communities at UVA.
Good morning, everyone. And as we have said, welcome, and bear with me. We have quite a few accomplishments since you may have met with us in April of last year. 68 new tours have been given in the last year, with approximately 1,908 attendees and ongoing tours of the Memorial to Enslaved Laborers. 5 new names have been added to the memorial wall this year. We currently have tours scheduled through September of 2023. We have 2 UVA work-study students. One assists Dr. Shelley Murphy along with research, and our other assists with tour management and photography. Implemented monthly meetings with our Descendant membership, our monthly newsletter that goes out to our Descendants and interested community partners. We held Liberation and Freedom Day this past March with UVA and Montpelier. Members of the DEC participated and spoke on panels of the Universities Studying Slavery Conference at the University of Virginia. DEC also sponsored a lecture session on Africatown at the University's Studying Slavery Conference at the University of Virginia. Members of the DEC attended the conference of Universities Studying Slavery in Chapel Hill, North Carolina, and also presented on a panel there. If you have not been to our website, please visit for more information, resources, and how to sign up if you believe you are a descendant or of a enslaved person who built the University of Virginia, to become a member, and most important at all, to make a donation to further our research and mission. Our website is descendantsuva.org, and I will give that to you also again, or someone will give it to you at the end of our session. There is also one other thing I would like to let you know about our accomplishments. DEC was part of the first ever national convening of Descendants organization leaders in April at the Descendants Communities Social Innovation Lab, hosted by the National Trust for Historic Preservation and the National Museum of African American History and Culture in Washington, D.C. So please visit our website, and it's www.descendantsuva.org. Thank you. And now I'll turn it back over to Naya.
Thank you, Colleen, for those announcements and our accomplishments. We are certainly building energy and momentum as the descendants of enslaved communities at UVA. And we invite you to continue coming to our programs, checking in for our monthly meetings, which take place on the second Thursday of the month at 7 p.m. on Zoom. You can find that information on the website that Colleen shared. And you can also join us for some of our upcoming events if you happen to be in Central Virginia. On Saturday, June 10th, we will be at James Monroe's Highland for their Descendants Day program. And on Saturday, June 17th, which is Juneteenth weekend, we will be at Monticello for their Descendants Day program. We will also be participating in local Juneteenth events in the city of Charlottesville, and we invite you to come meet us, come hang out, come share stories, and come get involved with the research at any of those upcoming events. Next, we will have Star introduce our fantastic, brilliant speaker today.
Thank you, Naya. I am so excited to introduce our speaker today. Before I do that, I want to do a few of our giveaways. And that's gonna take me 1 second. Can you see my screen? Give me a thumbs up. Okay. We are gonna give away an ancestry DNA test to one of you lucky attendees today. So if you are here, just put a here in the Q&A. Elizabeth, oh, that's loud. Elizabeth Ladner, if she's here, or does anyone see her in the chat or in the? If not, I'll go to the next person. And if you see your name on the screen, you can type here at that time. Thank you. Hang on a second. Let's try again. Okay, let's see, is Ellen here?
I don't see her, Star.
Yeah, okay. I'll keep spinning. Now, I don't know if that's Aisha or Aisha, but we will keep spinning if she is not here.
I don't see her name on there, Star.
Okay, all right. We're gonna give this DNA test away to somebody today.
Right. I'm like, must be present to win.
Come on, sis.
Right.
All right, I
Only
know
very good for
Treva's
wearing
here.
today.
I think Treva's here.
Right. Treva's here. I think she's here.
All right, Treva. So we have.
Wait, is she not? I don't see her.
Well, she was here.
Oh, no, she is. She
Okay, I
is.
was like,
Yes,
she
she
was
is.
definitely here. Okay, so
is.
we will get that to you, Treva. I think we have your information, but you'll get an email from me either way. I'm going to spin it one more time that's for Ancestry DNA test. I'm going to spin it again for a 23andMe kit.
So Aisha that you just spun, she is.
Oh, she's here. Okay, so we'll get
She's
that one.
here. So she
great.
just gets the 23andMe, right?
Yep. So this person here is Michelle here. We are also giving away a gift subscription to Ancestry if Michelle is here.
Michelle is here.
All right.
Michelle with it.
Okay, yep, that's it. So congratulations. You will get an email from one of us at the info@descendantsuva.org email address with instructions on when to receive your prize. And I now have the honor of introducing Nicka Smith. Let me stop sharing and stop spinning my wheel. It's still going. All right. Thank you. Sorry. I'm technically challenged today. So Nicka Smith is a host, consultant, and documentarian with more than 20 years of experience as a genealogist. She has extensive experience in researching the enslaved and their communities and is an expert in genealogy research in the Mississippi Delta. Nicka is phenomenal, I will say, in researching enslaved communities and is an avid storyteller. I think I posted on social media. She tells these amazing stories and then she posts the receipts to prove it. You may have seen Nicka appear on the Today Show, CNN, MSNBC, and Emmy-winning episode of Who Do You Think You Are? And has been interviewed by the Oakland Tribune, Enslaved, the Undefeated, National Geographic, and Time. She's the host of BlackProGen Live, an innovative web show with more than 130 episodes focused on people of color, genealogy, and family history. And you may have also seen Nicka appear on Ancestry's documentary, A Dream Delivered, The Lost Letters of Hawkins Wilson. So I will, at this time, turn it over to our keynote speaker. If you have any questions for Nicka, you can use the chat or post it in the Q&A.
All right. Thank you for the welcome. It's good to be with everyone this morning, depending on where you are, because I think where all of you are in potentially Virginia, it is Eastern time, so it's coasting into the afternoon. I'm in West Tennessee, which it is still morning, and I made sure that I polished off my breakfast with my university studying slavery mug with the UVA emblem on it this morning. I'm a very deliberate, cup drinker. I didn't get into coffee until the pandemic. So, and I had no mugs. My mug game was horrible. Like it was really, really bad. So my best friend and another friend kind of got me together. So I'm very deliberate about what I choose to drink out of each morning. So I made the deliberate choice this morning to drink out of this. I registered for this event and I was not there because I thought it was virtual, but my good friend who also bought my earrings, Shelly Murphy, actually sent me my little giveaway in the mail. So I was there, but not there. So I have a lot to share with you all today. When I was thinking about what I was going to talk about, I was kind of confounded because I said, we could sit here and do slides and talk about records and all kinds of stuff all day. But what I think would be the best use of our time, especially since we are all here together on this Descendants Day, where we are here just loving on our ancestors who paved the way for us, but also loving on each other. I really thought about the landscape of where things are for all of us. I say this as someone who is descended from an enslaved community myself. I would imagine that the majority of the people who are here are descended from enslaved communities, but in particular, individuals who have named and reclaimed the name of those institutions. You know, my ancestors were part of a community in southern Mississippi and along the Florida parishes in Louisiana, and we are really trying to figure out what we want to do in terms of organizing around that. And every one of those efforts takes different forms. DEC came together, they formed a nonprofit, they're doing work, they're doing tours. Over 1,000 people have heard about the enslaved laborers because of the tours and because of the advocacy work, but everybody's in a different place. It's all in a different place. And I think the convening in DC more recently really illuminated that. So with that said, I'm going to jump into the subject matter for today. And for those of you who are watching live, I want to know that you were there. I'm like your proverbial Black church preacher. I need to hear you talk to me, okay? You know how we got to talk back to the screen with the movies and all that other stuff. I need to hear from you all. I want to hear your thoughts because I'm going to raise a lot of points today. I'm going to challenge you. I'm going to challenge me. I'm going to challenge us. And I think we will be even more enriched after we commune about some of the things we're going to be talking about today. So the subject for my talk is called The Light and the Burden Within. And that in itself is very like, ooh, it's promise and it's challenge at the same time, right? But that's the existence that we live here as Black folks who are connected, or even anybody else who they may not even identify as Black. They may just have discovered that they are connected to enslaved people. Anyone who was connected to enslavement has a light and a burden. All right, let's talk about reunions, because that's why we're here, okay? Reunion is a noun. And if you define it, it can mean an instance of two or more people coming together after a period of separation. So I would definitely think that this counts as a reunion, right? Because at one point we were separated. There was no DEC. There were separate people doing separate things, but now we've come together and we are communing as one. But reunion also means a social gathering attended by members of a certain group of people who have not seen each other for some time. Because a reunion could be family, or it could be kin, or it could be a community. And we're also doing that in this space today as well. But then reunion also means the act or process of being brought together again as a unified whole. So typically we think about like this image with these cute young ladies, and they're sitting on the grass and they got these little pots and they're doing their whole thing, right? But even with that, right? Even with the fried chicken, the ribs, the potato salad, sans raisins, right? Without the raisins, okay? Even without that, we are being deliberate about us coming together. And a lot of times for our people, the deliberateness of coming together is where we fall short. And that doesn't mean that everybody has to think the same and do the same and have the same thought process and do all that kind of stuff. No, that's not what that means. It just means that we are coming together, just the physical presence of us together. Because what I know is that when you bring people together, change happens. When you galvanize people, change happens. And either the change can be positive for you, or it could be negative, or it could be a combination of the both. So what does the light and the burden within, what does that look like in real terms? For me, when I think of a light and I think of a burden, I think about the first reunion my family ever had, the first formal reunion, okay? Because there are some folks who in my family who would argue that this was the first one, right? But this is documented in the East Carroll Delta News. This is the original clipping that was in the newspaper in 1972, when my grandmother and her siblings got together in good old Lake Providence, Louisiana. And if you ever follow me, y'all know I'm gonna shout out Lake Providence because that's where my family is from. I would not exist without it. And in this article, you see this photo, and it's not the best photo, right? Like, it totally is not. It's like, it's giving Kodak bias in processing of films with people with dark skin. It's giving what we call the Atlas scowl, right? Nobody is smiling, right? Exposure times have gotten better, but yet and still, we look like it is 1904. Okay, so everyone in this picture is doing what we call the Atlas, and I catch myself doing this as well. But the burden of the light within this is that all of these folks pictured, my grandmother and her living siblings at the time, these are children of folks with an 8th grade education. These are children of folks whose only way of providing sustenance and taking care of them was having a farm. They had no other options because they were in the Deep South. And not just the Deep South, the deep, deep South, the Mississippi Delta, the places that people to this day do not want to go to right now. You will not catch them there. Nope, not going. Have no reason to. Yet, this group emerged out of it. By the time this picture is taken, you see 2 sisters living in Chicago, a brother that's there with them, another one in Detroit, another one in Philadelphia, another one in Los Angeles, and the remaining sister was in New Orleans. All of these kids spread out. But even despite all of that growing and learning and expanding out, what did they talk about when they got together? In this article, there were stories and things that I didn't even know, and I was glad that this reporter reported on it. My uncle's talking about, he says, just seeing each other again, all in one place at one time was the most enjoyable part of this occasion. I don't recall ever seeing all of us at the table at any one time during our childhood. And this is the group that grew up together that has the same parents, and even they had to make a concerted effort to all be at the table. Well, why didn't they eat at the same table? Because the oldest one was born in 1895 and the youngest one was born in 1916. Unless that oldest child stayed, there was no way that they were all together in the house at the same time. So if this group had to make a concerted effort to get together, why are we not doing that now? If they started 50 years ago doing this. So what did their effort turn into? It turned into this. In fact, this isn't even the most recent picture. That small reunion held in that small little hotel in Lake Providence, Louisiana that nobody would ever stay at now because, oh my Lord, my Lord. Okay? This is what it turned into. But we don't go from that article in talking about that small gathering to this unless you go out and get the people. As long as we stayed in that hotel, as long as we corralled it to just being my grandmother's siblings and their descendants, we don't get to this. We don't get there. We don't learn the stories. We don't recognize that we have survivors of gun violence who were shot at the age of 15 and were told that they would not survive it and that they would not graduate from high school. And now they're operating as a mental health therapist for young people, just like the folks that shot them, and are running a nonprofit to prevent gun violence. We don't see the scores of teachers, educators, musicians, freedom riders. We don't get any of that. We don't get just regular Black folks who are just, by virtue of them living life, just being and existing, they are incredible. We don't get any of that. If we stay in that hotel off of Highway 65 with just the people we know. This image is one that I saw in person at the Brooks Museum literally a week ago. And it's a part of a collection, it's a part of an exhibit that they have there from an incredible artist. If you ever get the opportunity to see Harmonia Rosales' work in person, please do it. Because I feel like the printed image, even this as a flat image, does not do it justice. I have to set this up because Harmonia Rosales is not trained. She's not a classically trained. She did not go to art school. This incredible image that you're seeing, the person who painted it was not trained. She did not have Kehinde Wiley over her shoulder guiding her brushstrokes, no institution trained this young lady. She went through books, she watched, she learned, she studied, and she crafted her art. And it says something about the ingenuity of Black people in the diaspora to be able to pull off the untold in ways that people said we could not do it because we didn't go through the channels that they said that we should have. So when she describes this painting called The Migration of the Gods, it's the migration of Orishas, who are Yoruba deities, right? These are gods, right? In the Yoruba tradition, okay? And she's imagining them as captives during the Middle Passage. And if you've ever seen an image of slave castles on the coast of Africa, that's what you're seeing in the background. And there's so many things happening in this photo because just that slave castle in the back is it's eliciting a lot. You see the boat where clearly the slave traders are fighting with some of the deities or with some of the captives. And they're trying to enslave them. And then you have the folks that fell off, right? That battled off, who are on the side, and they are couching Yamaya, and they are together, they're holding themselves. And then what I want to call your attention to is the center part of the image. What do you see? To the far right, you see someone carrying another person to safety. You see, what else? What else do you see? You see everybody's radiating a light around their heads, right? Every single person, not just the deities that can be called out. Everyone has a light. Every single captive has one. But in the center of this photo, you see one of the captives. Yes, everyone is helping each other. You see one of the captives with one of the deities on their back. Do you notice that? The deities are clothed, have beautiful adornments about them, but the regular folks, they don't have those. But yet, the regular person is carrying the deity. You also see that the regular person is coming with something. How are you, as an enslaved captive in that original photo, where you allegedly have nothing, how are you bringing something to the table? You are walking in with something. Do you not know? Do you not see that you are walking in with something? And if you really look at this, I'm not quite sure what this image is, this pointy thing. Is it a way to weave? Is it a way to connect? Is it a way to further keep creating, despite your apparent lack of having anything in the first place? Y'all, I'm telling you, if you get the opportunity to see her work, because this is not doing it justice, please go see this in person. But I share this image with you at the onset of this dialogue and this conversation because it is going to guide the rest of it. What am I talking about? How are we showing up? How are we getting off of of that ship? How are we getting into that job? How are we showing up in our familial spaces, in our communal spaces, in convenings like this? How are we showing up? Some of us are showing up with that bag full of positive memories. They could be from our childhood, from even previous reunions. For me, that photo that I showed you of my family from 2019, that's not my first reunion. I don't even remember the first one I went to because they've been having them longer than I've been alive. They were, in essence, planned for me, for the me that was coming. So I'm walking into that gathering with a positive thought and a positive memory. But for some people, when they get off the shore, they are walking in with pain, which could be from their childhood. It could be from a previous family gathering or a previous reunion or a relationship or a scenario or the way you handled them when so-and-so passed away, or when they even engaged with the topic of family, it elicits painful memories. So we also show up with lots of knowledge. Some of us have incredible oral history or information that we found on our own, that we were able to pierce through the noise so easily and so succinctly, and just we've got it, right? We've grown up and or have emerged with this newfound knowledge, and we're powerful for it. But then there are people who show up without it. How do we course correct for this? Because the people who have a lack of knowledge, they may be coming with that lack of knowledge because of a culture of silence, a culture of not talking, of not even knowing where to start or who to call, versus the folks with lots of knowledge who already know that, or who already have the people and have the phone numbers and have the relationships. So as we carry that deity on our back, those of us that have the positive memories and the lots of knowledge, and the individuals who are not carrying the deity, they have the painful memories and the lack of knowledge, or it could even go a mix of those. But the question is, what are we carrying with us before we even engage with other people? Because that's what we step into familial spaces, into reunions, into descendant groups, into everything. We're coming in with that. And as discussions around reparations and atonement and all of that stuff starts to ramp up nationally, we have to be clear that it is not just a providing of a paper. It is not just a, oh, well, you can easily prove this and blah, blah, blah. No, ma'am, no, sir. No, they, no, them. People are walking in the door with things before we even get to the mechanics of proving this or that. And I would even offer, we are on the precipice of an emotional journey that I think a lot of us don't even consider, because people are looking at dollar figures and ways out of poverty, which they should. But we're not reckoning with the emotional aspects of it. We're not. What does this image say to you? Use the chat. I want to hear from you all. Because on its face, right, it seems like I'm talking about something that's happened in the last week, right? Made national news. Of course I should be concerned with this, because this happened in the state I live in, right? And the chat, thank you. Power, it represents power, the promise for the future, pride, victory, legacy. We shall overcome, right? Still I rise, victory, intervention, and doing the right thing. Come on, Tracy. Now on its surface, you've got Justin Jones on the left, or I've been calling the proverbial Justin. Ooh, that's a good one. To me, I finally say, finally. That part, that's a good one. Collaboration, good. So we got the Justins, right? The Tennessee Justins. Justin Jones on the left, Justin Pearson on the right, okay? Justin Jones representing Nashville, and Justin Pearson representing Memphis, who were formally expelled from the Tennessee House for participating in a protest on the floor in support of stricter gun laws in the state of Tennessee. And this is following a shooting at a private Christian school in Nashville that left 6 people dead, including 3 children. And there's a reason why I'm showing you this image after I talk about how we show up. Because nobody was paying attention to the Justins, and even Gloria Johnson, who was also on the tab to be expelled. No one cared about them 3 weeks ago. In fact, if you went around the country, people probably didn't even know they existed outside of the state of Tennessee. But the reason why I raise this photo to you and I bring it before you is because I have a question, okay? After the conversation around how we show up and what people come to the table with, think about how they showed up when no one was watching, when no one was paying attention, or anyone cared. How did they show up for people that didn't know they needed to be shown up for before the world had a spotlight? Before a little small news entity called the Tennessee Holler in the state of Tennessee that was started by a man named Justin Canoe, who ran for office and was not elected, but decided to step up to cover Tennessee politics. Before that makeshift, not mainstream news entity was going on Twitter and on all social media and amplifying this story, what were the Justins doing? If we try to make it about doing what's right when the attention is on us, we miss all the work we could have been doing before that. And we won't be prepared like they were when the spotlight came upon them. Hear me? Notice they weren't ill prepared. They walked right into where they were supposed to walk in, because they were doing what they needed to be doing while nobody was watching. So let's go further. When we talk about that image, okay, go back to the migration of the gods and that image, and what are we giving off? What are we emanating, right? What is coming from us at this time, right? What are we giving off? Yes, chat. Y'all are coming in here good with the chat today. Okay. What are we giving off? What are we emanating? What are we putting out into the world? What are we showing others about us in our stories? We're saying, as DEC, as other enslaved groups, yes, light, grace, absolutely. We're saying that there's a need for multidimensional approaches. What does that mean? That means that not just a physical memorial or words of apology or a passion project, that's what we're sending out into the world. Because especially when you start talking about enslaved communities that are connected to institutions of higher learning, there is almost a proverbial sort of box that the media consultancy sends to these schools once it's put out into the world that they have a connection to enslavement or the marginalization of people of color, right? It's crisis media, apologize, right? A professor makes it their passion project until they leave the school. And then what happens to the descendant community? Oh, but at that point, we've got this physical memorial that we've put money into. But did you ask what the descendants wanted? Did you engage them? Did you engage the larger community who is living around this space? What we are radiating, what we are sending out into the atmosphere is, yes, it's light. Yes, it's grace. Yes, it's hope, but that it's not a one size fit all. However, we as a people approach, as a whole approach our stories, and our histories. We're also radiating that we're not monolithic, we're polylithic. That we have varied experiences, varied perspectives, varied voices, and that what works for one group of people doesn't always work for ours. For instance, if we even go back to my family reunion, we don't really have a lot of performances at the banquet. That's just odd for us. We're not a arts family. You know, I joked a week or so ago, I said that if you were to divide my family between my mother and my father's side, using the March on Washington with Martin Luther King as a frame of reference, my father's side would be the people performing the music and the songs and the spoken word, and my mom's people would be preaching the sermons or giving the speeches. So it would be out of place for somebody to come into the banquet and start singing. And actually, y'all, that really did happen. And it fell exactly how you thought it would fall. Right? So I say all that to say that didn't work for that side, but it would totally work on my father's side. People would actually welcome it. We probably would even have a concert. So think about it from that perspective, okay? When we gather together, we have varied perspectives, we have varied experiences, we have varied voices, and you have to know your audience, and you have to know who your people are, and what will stick and what will not stick. And we also have to talk about how our histories are not exceptions, right? They're not, okay? Because the number of communities, whether it's a family reunion, whether it's descendants of enslaved, the same enslaved group of folks, whether it is an advocacy group, whoever it is, this history, this Black history, it has to stop being looked at as an exception, right? Like, oh, you know, that one is better because it's got X, Y, Z. No, because everybody isn't walking into the scenario with the same stuff. And that when we start to exception ourselves, that's dangerous territory, because we make it sound like we're making it exclusive. And should it be exclusive, or should it be inclusive? It's a question to ask. So since we're talking about current events, y'all know I couldn't hit you up with the Justins and not talk about this, right? Could not do it, not being Barbara and Jackie's child. No, I could not, okay? And you may or may not have seen this. And that's okay. Let me tell you about what this picture is about, okay? On the left, we have Caitlin Clark of Iowa. And on the right, we have Angel Reese of the beloved Louisiana State University, which I will also give an aside to the fact that there was a home colony for the Freedmen's Bureau that sits on the exact spot of Louisiana State University in Baton Rouge, but that's an aside, okay? Now, you got Angel Reese on the right of LSU. They battled it out in the women's Final Four, okay? NCAA, this is college basketball, right? And Caitlin on the left, she was the darling. She had been celebrated as being a trash talker for the entire tournament, okay? So much so that ESPN did an entire segment on how much she trash talked with her sound bites. They interviewed other players. They did all of this. And when people reflected on how Caitlin showed up and how she radiated, they said that she had grit on the court, and yeah, like they totally sold into that narrative. Yeah, look at her. She's aggressive, blah, blah, blah. But once Caitlin reached the final game and was near losing, Bayou Barbie, right? Angel Reese, she took up to taunting, as people called it, classlessly chiding Caitlin in the same way, and I'm throwing up air quotes, right? Because this is not my quote. She chided Caitlin in the same way that Caitlin had done other people the entire season. You see her throwing up her finger saying, "You don't have no ring." She did the whole "you can't see me." And when Angel did it, again, she was claimed to be classless, and she was accused of taunting Caitlin and not spoken of highly. She didn't get a segment on ESPN about her trash talking, at least not in a positive light. The whole discussion was how people were calling her horrible names or even an effing idiot, if we want to quote Keith Olbermann, who was a well-known media personality, right? And what Angel did, I love this during the press conference after the game. She said, I'm too hood. I'm too ghetto. Y'all told me that all year. But when other people do it, y'all don't say nothing. So this is for the girls that look like me. Now, in the conversation around what are we radiating, what expectations do we have for how we and others radiate? Is respectability tied to either of those? And if so, what's the root of the respectability? I beg to ask, has respectability ever really protected us? And what I mean by respectability is there is a thought process that Angel shouldn't have done that. She should have, acted like she had some sense or some home training as we talk about it, right? But again, I ask again, has respectability ever really truly protected us? Because say what you want about Southern states, but last time I checked, the majority of this police violence in terms of who is being killed by the police is not happening in large records or numbers in the Deep South. It's happening in our Great Migration locations. So in essence, is respectability, I mean, should we be pushing ourselves to show up and radiate in that way if it's not really going to protect us? Why can't we just be who we are? And some of this, for some of us, it's a challenge because this goes against conventional norms that we were taught and was enforced in us, right? Things for me like always carry money in your pocket, no matter what, always have cash because you don't want them to assume that you're loitering. Or don't go to the grocery store and buy one thing, even if it's a pack of gum, make sure you get a bag so they can't say you're stealing. We gotta ask these questions. All right, so the last thing I'm gonna leave you with is this. What are we missing? So we talked about what we're carrying, right? How we show up, what we're radiating, right? What we're giving off, what we're putting out into the atmosphere. But then we also have to talk about what we're missing, because not everyone in that photo, the Migration of the Gods, was carrying something that some of them, it was just enough to be able to get on the shore. And I would argue what we're missing is access. And this can come in a number of different ways. Access to actually having records of genealogy that document our families, or access to stories that talk about our families, or even just the ephemera, the papers, the photos, the documents, the things that are now so central and important to fleshing out the stories of our families. Even the history of our reunions and our gatherings and things like this, we're longing for that because for so long, so many people, they attached institutional definitions around what is considered important, right? We had to have the museum say that that was worthy. We had to have Lords and Taylors, or whoever the people are that I'm with, I can't think of the name, right? That do appraisals. We had to have them come in and say that something is valuable, as opposed to us placing a value on it ourselves before it was considered to be valuable, right? We also are missing access to healthy and equitable spaces to critically talk about our barriers to access, right? Like to even just come into a space and say, yes, that's good, but it could be better, right? Yes, that works for now, but we need to improve it. Instead of this, we'll just take it because we ain't never had nothing. Right, the chat is good. Access to information, information equity, our own libraries and archives. Right. Access remains our greatest challenge. But how do we work to improve it? Because access is across the board. It's whether we have access to the records, it's access to, once we get to them, how processed are they so that we can get to the information quickly like other groups can. It's okay, let's say it's not available at our homes. When we get to the locations, are we marginalized when we go into those places looking for the records just because we seem to be a fish out of water? or the institution is set up in a way that it's not conducive for us to be there and to operate in that space. Sometimes you have folks that are self-starters and they make an effort, but then the machine or the entity or the institution tries to overtake them. What does this look like? Well, this is an article came out just a few days ago. I would imagine most of you know about the Tulsa Race Massacre, right? 1921, racial violence that took place in the Greenwood district of Tulsa. Most people did not even know that that had happened until the 100th anniversary of it, because it was pushed out into the news and into the fore. Okay, within a few days ago, the Tulsa Race Massacre investigators say they've sequenced DNA from 6 possible victims. 6 potential people who were killed in the race massacre, buried in graves. They've exhumed their bodies and sequenced their DNA. And they're saying that they have 6 possible victims that they've sequenced. Okay, and to quote the story from NPR, team of researchers hoping to identify victims of the 1921 Tulsa Race Massacre said Wednesday they had completed DNA sequencing of 6 sets of human remains exhumed from the city's Oak Lawn Cemetery, where bodies of Black residents in the violence are thought to have been buried. Speaking at a news conference in Tulsa, Mayor G.T. Bynum announced what he described as a major scientific breakthrough. We do not believe a match of this type has ever been achieved before in American history. Bynum said 22 sets of remains had been exhumed from the cemetery so far, but that experts are not yet sure if any of them were massacre victims. However, the DNA results could allow researchers to make a match with possible living relatives. And this is a quote: "There isn't a single genealogical investigation of this magnitude in the United States that has gotten this far, and yet we are still in the beginning stages of this process," Bynum said. There's a lot more investigative work that is happening. And with the public's help, we are eager to enter the next phase of this process. Now, this is where the story takes an interesting turn. For the 6 sets of remains that were examined, the research team has identified surnames of interest for potential relatives in Oklahoma, Alabama, Georgia, Mississippi, Louisiana, and Texas. If a member of the public sees their surname flagged and has family history in Tulsa, they are being asked to contact the team at this particular website. Now, hold on. Allison Wild, the genealogy case manager for the 1921 Tulsa Project, says anyone who shares the surnames in question and lives in or has historical ties to the designated areas may be able to help. They can upload their own DNA to GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA, so researchers can examine them for a possible match. Now, on the surface, this looks to be like a win, right? We are using technology, we're giving potential victims access to resources and things after all this time that nobody has had access to. But I want you to go back to that last quote. They can upload their DNA test to GEDmatch or Family Tree DNA. And she goes on to say, you may have taken a test at Ancestry or 23andMe or MyHeritage, but if you want your DNA compared to the unidentified human remains in this project, then those tests need to be uploaded or transferred. Now, why is this a problem? Because note, in order for you to help this, you've got to participate, with air quotes, in their investigation. And they're requiring people to upload their genetic data to 2 websites that allow open access to law enforcement, instead of building a system on their own or working with local advocacy groups on a compromise. These two systems, GEDmatch and Family Tree DNA, have had a history of Black folks not opting in to using their services. They don't have a large bolstered community of Black folks. So in some ways, you could even potentially see this as, oh, well, people, you know, they're so desperate, we will send them anywhere. It's coming to conflict with local stuff, because I went to the website and I looked, and when I looked at their little intake form, it was duplicating the efforts of Justice for Greenwood. What is Justice for Greenwood? It's a advocacy organization that was set up by descendants of people who survived Tulsa and who currently has a case against the city of Tulsa for the victims who are still living, who survived the race massacre. They already have their own genealogy project. I'm on the team that does the research. So why city of Tulsa in bed DNA project and running a parallel genealogy project to the advocacy organization that is run by Black people? And I raise this to say, what's the price we're willing to pay for access? Because it's going to come around, it's going to be bright and shiny. It's going to have all the latest and all the other things. But we have to ask ourselves critical questions about what we're really paying for and who is it really benefiting. Thank you.
Thank you, thank you, thank you for that brilliant presentation. I'm left thinking about all of these questions you raised about access to archives, about owning our stories and our narratives and our connections to different spaces, and also honoring that we all come from different perspectives and different backgrounds. So a round of applause. I know we have our attendees here and they can always hit that reaction button so that we know that they're with us. They can drop those applause in the chat. And we'd love to kick off the discussion. So very selfishly, because I have the floor, I want to ask the first question. But I also hope that our attendees can either raise their hands and we can promote them so that they can come on and we can see their faces and see everyone joining us today with their questions. You can also put them in the chat or in the Q&A function if you'd rather us read it for you. So without further ado, I want to ask a couple questions that follow up on this idea of showing up. So as part of the 4 ways that we show up, you mentioned cultural silences as one of the hurdles to us getting engaged in this work. So I wondered, what are some of the strategies that you've employed in your own research for getting beyond those silences? How do we move around and embrace the gaps while also expanding what we know about ourselves and our families?
I think really it starts with the olive branch. I can recall when I made the active choice that my family history project had to leave the confines of what I called the hotel, right? Because it was easy for me to just, for us to stay in the hotel off of Highway 65, right? Like that was easy because I know all those people. I know their idiosyncrasies. I know that, I have an uncle that only bathes on 2 days a week because that's the schedule they had in the country. You know what I'm saying? I know all those things. That's my institutional knowledge. But I clearly recall when I had to make the choice to leave the hotel, right? When I personally decided that my project was really not about me and it was not about my immediate family. It was about all the people who didn't know they were related to me, who didn't grow up with the same information that I did. And it came when a cousin passed away. And it wasn't even a distant cousin. This is the second cousin. We have the same great grandparents. And I literally summoned out to my, our shared cousin, bring me back a program for the funeral. That's what I said. Bring back a program, right? Y'all know how valuable those programs are. But in doing so, I was passive, right? I was relying on someone else to make the connection for me, as opposed to me walking in my fullness of who I am and the charge that I have in my life in terms of preserving my family's history, right? I was totally allowing someone else to do for me as opposed to me doing it myself. And I remember hanging up the phone going, why can't I go? Like, I literally had to ask myself, why can't I be there? And it was in a place I had never gone to in my entire life. Back when we still had MapQuest. Does MapQuest still work? I don't know. It's just, I'm aging myself. You know, we had to print out your directions, right? Because your phone screen was too little for you to be trying to read directions and scroll. We didn't have that. No, we didn't. So I printed out the directions and I drove to the funeral and I went. And after that, I was not apologetic about when and how I showed up, because I knew I had a charge and I knew I was supposed to be there. And I knew that the information that I had was going to free somebody at some point that I didn't even, in my mind, I couldn't even conceive who it was. So if we walk from that perspective, that we don't really own it, we're just a custodian on behalf of our ancestors. And when we connect with folks, we're giving them the space to tell us what their experience has been with connecting with this information or not having the ability to connect because there's a culture of silence. So and the other thing that we have to also think about is that for some people, it takes them time to warm up. We can't assume that, that they're all going to come to the table ready and willing to talk. Like, you have to nurture a relationship, not just with newer folks in your family or newer connections, but with the elders, because they have to know that they can trust you with the information and that you're just not going to run around and take advantage of it and not share it with other people. So yeah, I would say in that instance, especially with the culture of silence, you have to build a culture of talking and a culture of communication. And you have to initially show that and create a space where those folks that you're engaging with that, in your family have grown up around silence, where they see that that's not necessarily healthy.
Thank you. You ended your presentation speaking a little bit about the Tulsa Project and raised this question about the ethics around DNA research, but also around data. Could you speak a little more about those things, about ethics and how it implies or how it connects with this research?
Yeah, I think it's a broader conversation. Number one, because we are a people who how many examples can you pull out? You see one DNA article, right? And it could even be a positive one. Oh, Lord, Tuskegee, and it's like, study on a disease, like, you know what I mean? Like, you're trying to like corral like all the issues, but it's trauma. The reason why people bring it up, anytime we have innovation around science, we just shut down, right? Like, we literally become almost like unrepentant toddlers around science. And some of it is valid, right? Like, I saw my uncle do something. I get it. But what I've seen in terms of what DNA can do, it's like that last slide. What are we willing to trade for access, right? Who has the information? Who controls it? Where are we sharing it and uploading it to? What are their policies? And that stuff shifts over time, right? You all know when you get the email that the terms of services change. Did you read any website you've registered that said, oh, we've had an update in our terms of service? Did you even read the email? Because I know I go, oh, okay, terms of service, okay, good. I just make an assumption, right? Like, oh, they got me. Sometimes it's hard to even decipher what the heck they're talking about because they're not clear. And that shifts all the time. So we have to constantly keep our eye on the ball. And it makes me think of a story that one of my cousins mentioned that was in the movement. And she said that, and she still says, that people have this perception that once the Freedom Riders walked into the lunchroom, or they went into the waiting room at the bus station, right? That the one time they did it was enough, right? Like, that was it. The cameras came, took the pictures, they went got a breast, did they have a mugshot off? All that ended it all. Concertedly go back into spaces and keep doing it. Number one, to show the folks that were keeping them out that they were not going to stay out. And number two, to show the people that were never allowed in that they could go in. And I use that example to say, we know it's not that the goalposts keep moving, is that the end zone keeps moving, which means we have to keep moving and we have to be nimble and we have to stay abreast about what's going on. And one of the things that I love about us as a people is, baby, we could pass some messages. Listen, okay, if we got to get the bat signal out by hook or crook, we all gonna know. We're gonna find out about it some way. Even if you ain't on Twitter, you're gonna hear about what happens on Twitter. Even if you ain't on Facebook, you're gonna hear about what happens on Facebook, right? We still got phones. Think about how we have shifted this entire industry. Literally. So I said to say, we've got tools, we've got resources. We also have to be mindful of keeping our eyes on the prize and recognizing that the goal, everything moves and shifts. And we've got to stay where we are. And the one beautiful thing, I think, you know, we talk about how successful civil rights was and not. To me, I see it. The way that I see it is in the Justins. The way that I see it is in Naya, right? I see it in all of us. I mean, because if it was still happening, if we didn't have access and we didn't move through life differently and take up opportunities, would we be sitting in a virtual space, a place that don't even exist? Y'all realize we are in a space that doesn't really exist right now, and we're talking to each other. Like, I know you're here and I'm here, but we're in a place that don't even exist and we're exchanging information. I'm gonna have to sit back and think about that today.
Not us time traveling in the year 2023. I mean, we know that time and space have never been boundaries for Black people. I mean, I think about the work of Octavia Butler in writing Kindred, right? That this idea of reconnecting with your ancestry actually has the ability to like teleport you and your consciousness to other realms. So, I mean, we're doing a little bit of that today. So we have a couple questions in the chat. We got some people with their hands raised. So I'm going to go ahead and promote our two people with their hands raised to panelists so that we can see them. And hold on one second, you all, with the questions. I got to get you up here as panelists, giving you the boost. And we'll start with Sakina, if you want to unmute and turn on your camera to ask your question. Sakina, are you there? Okay, while we reconnect with Sakina, I think we have a question also from Miss Regina Vaughn. Oh, Sakina, are you unmuted? You there?
Yes.
You
No,
have a
I didn't
question?
have a question,
Oh, okay. All right.
but I enjoyed the presentation.
Thank you, Sakina. All right, we have a question from Miss Regina Vaughn next. And you'll have to unmute. Ms. Vaughn, are you there? I'm gonna send you a request to unmute if you are there. Okay, well, we'll pivot to the chat. Aisha has a question. She says she's multitasking, so don't turn your camera on. But her question in the chat was about obstacles. She says, a question and or obstacle that I face is my family not wanting one another in their business. They want to keep their DNA and secrets to themselves. How should I deal with those things?
Well, here's the thing. Like, anyone who has done DNA testing, you know, for the major companies, you know, it's autosomal, right? That means that it's not just your mother's side, it's not just your father's side. You are an amalgamation of both. So I look at family history in the same way, right? Like, you can't go around casting down people and tell them you don't want nobody in your business when you were autosomal. You can't, because you can't pick and choose, right? Like, you can't. So to me, it's the wanting in other people in their business, I think that stems from folks living in small towns and small enclaves. And you know, the town knowing your business, right? The proverbial town knowing your business, or some situation. Some of this is just residual hurt and pain over scenarios that are not in our control. And I feel like there's some level of bridge building that you can do with those folks. And you have to also at the same time recognize that they don't want a bridge to be built. They're very comfortable looking at you from across the way without a bridge. You can get in a boat and sail across and come right over there. But if you are asking and requesting them to build a bridge to walk over to you, it might not ever happen. Now, that doesn't mean that that person's children or their siblings may not be willing to build a bridge, but they themselves, sometimes folks just can't get over it. And again, that goes back to what are we showing up with? And as light as we want genealogy and family history to be, on its face, for Black folks, it's emotional, period. It doesn't even matter if it is, you know, oh, look at 1950 census, look at my girl, oh, look at blah, blah, blah. Yeah, and then you like, oh, yeah, says my grandparents are separated. Whoop, then you get all these memories. One little line can set somebody off. So no, for us, it's always emotional. And some people can move past it, and some people, they can't.
Aisha, did that answer your question? I have promoted you up here to panelist, so you can unmute if you'd like. Oh, she says in the chat.
Oh yeah, thank you
Okay.
so much. Yeah, sorry, I'm multitasking. I have my grandkids today and they're very loud. Yes, I think that was very helpful. Thank you so much, because yeah, a lot of people, they like to sit on the side and they're like, oh, this is so great. And then when you ask them, you know, to share their information or be willing to take a DNA test, they're very hesitant. Or they let me do research, but they're like, don't share that information with anyone else. And I'm like, but this isn't, you know, just about you. So I'll say, for example, my father, he is like, don't share that information. I'm like, but this affects more than just you. Even just basic, simple things like we did African ancestry. He doesn't want me to share what tribe he's from. And I'm like, it's not just you, it's anyone connected to our grandmother. And he's like, well, yeah. So I had to kind of warm him up and talk him into it. And I'm like, this is not your personal, you know, family tree or history or who you're related to. It's just a simple country and a tribe of people. So I think people are just in that habit of, you know, don't, you know, put my business in the street type of thing, like she said.
Great. Does anyone else have questions? And Star has just dropped in the chat with, oh, Bertha, go ahead.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation. And this is actually a technical question about ancestry. I noticed that in their Freedmen's Bureau records, they will include all of the data that exists on the records, like the name of the individual, the beneficiaries, you know, et cetera, but they will not include the name of the former master. Have you noticed that, or is it just I wonder why that is, first of all.
Well, it all depends. Depending on which iteration of the Freedmen's Bureau determines what indexing was done, right? You have some indexing early on, well before most people were thinking about it, that was done locally in Virginia. You've got the Smithsonian Project, which is every word. You've got Family Search, which did indexing. Then you have Ancestry doing additional indexing to the Bureau that was not done in any of those places. So I would actually say it's not an ancestry issue. It is an archival issue. Okay. And it's an issue across the board, regardless of the repository that we're now using to access the records. And it's a priority that I've seen a number of institutions, like for instance, UNC Chapel Hill. They have a whole collection of records of you know, slaveholding families, which include the records of the enslaved. And they knew as a repository that has that information, when they are putting up a finding aid, right? Or even a collection guide that tells you what's in there, if they're not explicitly saying that enslaved people are mentioned in these documents, how is anybody finding them?
Right.
So priorities have shifted and changed. And I think we need to just be open. And it's a lot to ask for people to be patient as stuff ramps up. But the priority, and I'm not saying this for Ancestry, I'm saying this across the board, was not there to capture that information. But things are shifting and they're changing. And for some parts of our population, y'all know this isn't easy, right? To have that name. And I would even argue for some of us, it's not easy for us to see that name indexed next to our folks. We have to also realize as people who are steeped in this, we have a certain level of emotional intelligence and maturity that a lot of our other folks do not have. They are not there yet. So, you know, it's kind of a fine balance. I am definitely team, put it all out there, even little hash marks, and we don't even know what they are. Like, you know, because that could be something. But other folks, I've seen people entirely shut down by just seeing the name of an enslaved person, and it isn't even their ancestor. Just seeing the name and the dollar value, and here we are so cavalier. I mean, we over here with charcuterie boards and wine talking about it, and the person is literally laid out like it's decision time at church over one name and $1 value.
Right.
So I would say, again, it goes back to how we show up, and some of it is pushing, right, for better innovation, right? Yes, everything should be on there and should be indexed. No, but we've learned how to work within these systems that don't account for that. So now let's walk and have the expectation that it should be, because it should be there.
Right. Thank you.
No problem.
Star has dropped in the chat with information on ways that you can follow our brilliant speaker today on her social medias and the BlackProGen live pages. So all of those links are in the chat, as well as links to our YouTube channel where we will place today's recording so that you can rewatch this later and really process all of the gems that came out of this discussion. Before we conclude today, I want to make sure we get an opportunity to make sure that everybody gets swagged out in some DEC gear. And so to give instructions on how to get your very own DEC swag, I'm gonna tee up our very own Detisa Gathers to talk about buying some gear.
Again, Nicka, thank you very much. Thank you so much. This was awesome to show us how to show up for some things and to wake us up in a different way. Let's get swagged out. So let's take a look at our website. As you know, you can go to Descendants, uva.org webpage. And I would like to invite you to go to now merchandise. When you go to merchandise, you will see the information to share that pre-orders are on the way. This will begin shipping as of June 5th. And then you go right to the top here to get ready, to get started to shop. And Nicka, you can update your Tumblr. Yes, we got a new Tumblr there for you to take a peek at, to grab your Tumblr for DEC. Also, you have your regular t-shirt, we have hats. This is a beautiful lapel pin. It comes out very nice and it's very good to go on your nice outfits or different things when you're going out for the day to just show that you're a part of DEC. There's a nice little tote bag here. But hey, we live in Charlottesville and we have a problem going on. When we go to the grocery store, I know everyone is from all over, but let you know some Charlottesville news. Now our grocery stores charge us 5 cents a bag in the grocery stores to shop. So here's some bags that you can purchase for grocery store bags that are $5 each as well, which you can also grab for bags of merchandise. So I just want to let you know that this is all available for you. I hope that we get those tumblers and we get those shirts and you are ready to swag out with us. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Detisa. And I just want to reiterate that, you know, anything that you all give us or donate through the website and by purchasing the merch on our page, anything that's branded in DEC, those proceeds help us continue to host programs, to invite guest speakers, to strengthen our engagement with the Memorial to Enslaved Laborers at UVA, and to keep doing the work that is descendant organizing. So I think we have a couple more giveaways before we jump off today's program. So I want to invite Star to come spin some more names and see if we can't give away a few more ancestry memberships and DNA kits.
All right, here we go. Patrice Grimes. Do we see Patrice? Patrice, if you're here, can you put here in the chat? And I will spin again.
She'll be so disappointed.
Let's see, Sheila. I think I see a Sheila in the chat. She's here, okay. We will send you your ancestry DNA kit in the mail. Congratulations, and I'll do one more spin. Is Marquita here? Marquita is here.
Yeah, she's here.
Okay, so we
She's
will
here.
send her the 23andMe test kit in the mail as well. And I'll do one final spin for our last ancestry subscription. Is Deanna here today? I think she's here. Deanna? Do we see her in the chat or participant list? Yes, she's here. Okay, great. So we'll email the 2 subscribers to Ancestry. We'll send you that link or that gift subscription this weekend. Everyone else will mail out your kits, and I will turn it back over to Naya.
Awesome. Congratulations to all of our door prize winners today. And thank you to all of you for spending your Saturday mornings with us for Descendants Day 2023. We want to go ahead and get the dates on your calendar for our next Descendants Day and family reunion. If you could please reserve the weekend of April 19th through the 21st of 2024. We're going to plan to gather at the same time as the UVA Black Alumni Weekend. So we hope that this facilitates much easier travel, that we'll have opportunities to build with each other and with the Black alumni at UVA, and that we can keep the momentum in our movement. Before we close, I just want to give a quick reminder to everyone that also available on our website on the membership page, you can click to fill out any information that you want to give us about your families and your research, but you can also purchase a membership to DEC. We're hoping that you all begin to renew these memberships and that this organization becomes your organization, that you all will join us and that you will help us as we go about the work of organizing our descendant community and advocating for descendant communities all throughout the country, but especially in Central Virginia. So please go on our website. Again, that's www.descendantsuva.org. You can click the tab that says memberships. And if you haven't already filled that out, please do. And if you have, and it's been a while, I encourage you to log back into that system and re-up and keep moving forward with us. So without further ado, I just want to say thank you all for attending. We are so fortunate to have you with us.
Thank you also again to our guest speaker, Nicka. This was fantastic, like fantastic. And I can't wait to watch it again on our social media network, and we'll make sure you get those links as well to share today's programming. But thank you for joining us and have a great day.